Regeneration has been on my mind for a long time. And partly because I felt like the climate movement, if you can put that in air quotes, it's not one thing, it's not one group, it's not one movement, of course, but at the same time, the climate movement has been around for 50 years. I mean, the science has been around, and today, 99% of human beings on the planet do not do anything about the climate crisis. And half of them are sympathetic. That is to say, they understand it in one way or the other, and they feel that something should be done or something maybe could be done, but they don't actually do anything. And so I think we have to ask ourselves why that's true. And after 50 years of being in the public sphere, that most people are disengaged. And I think the disengagement is, I don't want to blame people. I don't think that's right. I think that disengagement comes from the way we've been talking to each other, all people, about climate. And we've spoken about it in a way that sort of others it. You know, we talk about fighting, tackling, combating climate change. And there's a lot of problems with that language. And not the least of which is they are war metaphors or sports metaphors as the verbs. And the other thing is we talk about climate change as if it was a thing, that we can fix it, that we can do something about it. And of course you are, and everybody there is keenly involved with it and so forth. But I want to say in terms of language, for those who aren't involved, it makes it sound like it's other, like it's something out there somewhere that something should be done about. And I feel like the language you should be using is about home, about us really working together to do something quite different than fighting something that's out there somewhere. Because climate, and this may be controversial, but I'll say it anyway, climate actually doesn't exist. It's a good word. It's candy. It's a really good adjective, but it doesn't exist. In other words, you can't find it, touch it, photograph it, measure it. What does exist is weather. No question about it. And what does exist, of course, is increasingly radical changes in jet streams. And it's almost like, you know, I think about jet streams now, it's like a climactic pornographic movie, a jet stream's gone wild, because you're seeing this incredible oscillation and patterns, even breaking of jet streams, you know, which happened this year in Europe. Which caused a great heat wave coming up from Africa. And so that is the world we live in. But I think we need to step back and understand that you can't actually fix the climate if it's an it. And you're third personing it or make it a pronoun. And the only way we can address and reverse the climate crisis is to create more life on Earth, which the last speaker spoke to eloquently. And there is no other way. Doesn't mean we can't use techniques or technologies to do so, but it's not a technical problem. It's not a science problem. It's a human problem. And all climate systems are social systems. And again, the prior speaker mentioned that very well, in terms of that integration and balance between culture and people and community and place and, you know, ecosystem and restoration and practices. But I think on a deeper level, what regeneration brings to us is a way of understanding. It's a lens and it's a framework. And we have all been educated and been brought up in an economic system that is extractive. Extraction means it takes, and what it takes is resources from the environment, from mines, from soil, from forests, from grasslands, from oceans, and also takes it from people. In the sense, it's extractive in every way. The most extractive company in the world today may be Google, in a way, in terms of, because it's extracting every shred of information that you inadvertently give to them by its usage. And so we are sort of immersed in an economy that is basically taking. It takes, and taking is harming. Harming is basically degeneration. So we just have to accept the fact that we live in a degenerative economy every which way we look at it, and so be it. But what was interesting about this year, 2022, from my point of view anyway, and I think from many people's point of view, was that a lot of people woke up to the fact that the extractive road, they may not use that term, but that road that we're on, which is extractive and degenerative, ends. You can see the end of it. In other words, it doesn't get better and it's going to get a lot worse. And so this is a signal instant in humanity where, at least more people have really shifted their understanding of the climate crisis from a conceptual one to an experiential one. And ironically or paradoxically, our ally in our work is also our nemesis, which is extreme weather. So weather is going to continue to become more disruptive than it has been in the past, and that's locked in for 30 years. But at the same time, that is an awakening. It's a cold shower. It is just, obviously you've had those in the flooding and the incredible fires in Australia, but people are having them all around the world. And you saw that in the headlines in the news all year round. And this is going to continue, which actually gives great credibility to the initiatives and the work that so many of you have been doing and working upon and instituting and implementing, both there in Australia, but in other parts of the world. And so we're kind of at the Dickensian, the best of times, worst of times, nexus, that point where things are getting worse, but things are also emerging in astonishing ways. And the thing about regeneration is, to me, it's a way of looking at the world. It's a lens, it's a framework. And what I mean by that is that we can look at what we do almost in a binary way. And that is, are we taking life or are we increasing life? And that really is the question, whether it's an individual, whether it's a community, whether it's a business, whether it's something we shop for, sell, buy, do, consume, whatever it is, that's the question. And it's the question the whole world is going to have to ask of itself, because, as I said, the road to degeneration is ebbing very rapidly. And so regeneration is innate. It's not a concept. It may be a concept to somebody who hasn't heard the word before, but what I mean by not a concept is that regeneration is the default mode of life. All life is regenerating. And even the death and birth of species or so forth is part of that regenerative process. And so it's innate to us. We are nature. All 37 trillion of our cells are regenerating right this second, and this second, and this second, and this second. Or you wouldn't be listening to this, and you'd be dead. But it's innate also in terms of who we are as human beings. And we are here Homo sapiens because we socialized, because we work together, because we learn together. Homo floresiensis and Neanderthal didn't do that. We did. We may be way off course right now, but that's how we got to where we are today. But within all of us, and I don't think there's an exception in the world today, but everybody cares about something. It could be their child, their friend, their parents, their relative, their community, their cat, their dog, their place, their forest. It goes on and on. That list goes on and on. And that is regeneration. So regeneration is really about touching into the heart. That is like coming home to who we really are as human beings. And the possibilities that augurs is incredible. And again, you go back to the languaging of the climate movement, and it's been very much about warnings, future existential threat, about fear. We use shame and guilt, to blame the greenhouse gas polluters. All understandable, but I don't think that really works. Because I don't think the idea that this is a fight works either. It doesn't mean the stakes aren't really, really high. Of course they are. But fighting produces the opposite reaction, whether it's from financial institutions or corporations or governances, whether they're corrupt or not. It always produces the opposite reaction. And so we're not about fighting. We're about actually speaking truth to power and acting. And regeneration, to me, and not because I define it or not because I use the word, but innately is our guideline. It's our guidance. It's our way forward. And so the question is, how do we apply that in our daily lives, in our institutional lives, as investors, as corporates who care about our company, what it produces, what it does, and the impact it has or doesn't have. All these areas are well served by using regeneration as a lens, as I say, as a framework of understanding. The interesting thing about the term nature-based, it was just very well defined. I have a different attitude about nature-based. I don't really like the term because the reason I don't like it is because it sounds like it's othering nature, like nature's out there somewhere and we've got to, take care of it. That's absolutely true. But nature, all solutions to reversing the climate crisis are nature-based. They're all nature-based solutions, every single one of them. Solar is a nature-based solution. Now, it doesn't mean it grows in the ground and sprouts like a tree. What it means is it substitutes a different form of energy, which is sunlight, for fossil fuels, all right? And so a huge reduction in harm to the living world comes from solar technologies, ditto wind. So we need to expand our sense of that because we want to really create a sense of connection between us in all the different solutions and not see them in silos, because I feel like the climate movement has siloed itself. And so much so that people think, okay, that I'm not a climate scientist, but I believe what they're saying, and it's 1.5 C and it's net zero emissions and et cetera, et cetera. That's all jargon and lingo, useful, but it doesn't connect to people. It doesn't connect to them at all. And so we need a way to communicate with each other. And I think it was touched upon in the last speech too, so forth, but where we really are about addressing current human needs, about current existential needs, not future existential needs. Excuse me, I've been speaking all day and my voice is a little dry. But and I think that's what regeneration does. And if you look at the solutions in Drawdown and Regeneration, the two books I authored, there's a plethora of solutions, and I think people understand them pretty well now. Not so much 5-6 years ago when we did the first book. But the point being is that even if there was not a climate scientist alive today and we didn't understand the source of extreme weather, we would want to be doing all of these solutions because they create a better life for every person on the planet, and especially for the 4 or 5 billion people on the planet who wake up every morning fretting, worrying, anxious about current existential threat. And we've got to bring those together so that the climate movement doesn't look like a privileged movement. It started there in the communication. That's mostly who's in Sharm el-Sheikh right now at COP27 is very privileged people having an interesting conversation, to be sure. But if we're going to succeed, we have to go to stories because facts do not change people's minds. And that is well-established neuroscience. What changes people's minds is stories, and stories connect us to each other and to our past, to our culture, to our families, our communities, to where we live. And so I just see that as innate in regeneration in terms of the possibility. And it doesn't mean that the probabilities of what is going wrong or what could go wrong are not valid. They're very valid. They're science-based. but we need to draw a bright line and say, got it, thank you, the science is extraordinary. And can we all talk about possibility? Because innate into regeneration, whether it's in agriculture or, reforestation, afforestation, the recovery of drylands, grasslands, marine coastal lands, it goes on and on. Speciation, of course, pollinators, all these things actually increase the well-being of human beings everywhere and all other species. We can't do one without the other. And so again, why I feel like regeneration is something that is not meant to be jargon. It's not meant to be a concept. It's not a litmus test at all. What it is an internal lens and framework to see the world and to understand our role in the world today and what is possible. And most of humanity moves towards possibility, not probability. So let's make those communications really clear. Let's get them off the perch of net zero emissions, which means almost nothing to anybody, by the way. It doesn't mean it's not a sincere commitment, but it's too far in the future. We need to speak in a language that connects to people right now. And the way you heal a system is to connect more of it to itself. And from what I know about what's going on in Australia with Damon and others and Charlie Massey and people I know that are doing, you were doing exactly that, by the way. And it also came out in the last election. So congratulations. And I think you're exemplary in the world today. I wish we had anything in the United States that approached the dimension of what's happening and the understanding and the activity that's going on in Australia today. So I don't mean to speak as somebody who is bringing something to you. I think you bring something to us, in the United States. And I just want to thank those who are doing that, including the speakers I heard and didn't hear, and all others who are there today for basically being those people and being this conference and being that country, because we need that leadership. You need it, of course, but we need it all over the world. And so I want to say thank you.